Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy. It is Nebraska Preps Postgame. My man Jacob Padilla, which means all of us at the same time are probably going to get smarter and be pretty factual too. Don't throw out any opinions and innuendos unless you say opinions and innuendo, because my man JP will have numbers to substantiate it. So don't you dare go there, man. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Let's start with one of those right off the bat. Do you know how many undefeated teams there are left 7 weeks into the season?
7 weeks, all classes?
Yep, all classes.
Let's go with 4.
6. So close. We talked about last week how much separation there was at the top.
Yeah, and then last week happened.
And then I think 4 teams suffered their first loss last week. So shows what we know.
Hey, so, but I mean, full disclosure though, with injuries and the schedule stacking games and then time off, kind of negotiating, getting into like a rhythm, do you count that at all, or are you just like, hey, you know what, play the hand you're dealt?
I mean, yeah, if they're impactful absences and things like that, then you kind of factor into how that game went. But I mean, it's a long season. Like you only have a handful that ever make it to the end undefeated. And this year's another one. We've got, again, some teams at the top have really separated themselves, but then some others we thought had done that. You have one bad day. I was talking with Coach Brodsky at Platteview. He said it's just when they suffered their loss to Wahoo. So they beat Ashland Greenwood, who lost to Wahoo, right? And then Wahoo comes and smacks them.
Yeah, and I watched that almost start to finish, and I'm just telling you.
Sorry, Ashland Greenwood beat Wahoo, and then Platteview beat Ashland Greenwood, and then
Wahoo
beat Platteview.
Pillar to post. Was never really in that game early. Got off to the quick start. Not a ton of answers for Benji. And I think Wahoo's tempo, like their pace, really, really bothered Platteview because, you know, Wahoo could play 8, used to be 9. And their substitutions and their tempo, I think ultimately wore Platteview down because, I mean, we know, Platteview they make their hay scoring the basketball on the offensive end, and Wahoo punished them when Platteview was playing defense.
Yeah, and let's start there in Class B, and we talk about Platteview. They're now 12-1. They went 2-1 last week. That was a 78-46 loss against Wahoo at home. I know they packed that gym. It just didn't go for them. They 5 of 21 from 3. Wahoo limited Connor Milliken to only 21 points. And then the kind of the rest of the other 3 that they could rely on offensively, Ezra Stewart, Alex Draper, and Trey Mosman, combined to shoot 6 for 23 from the field.
Yeah.
So that's just not, they really didn't, Milliken wasn't at his best. They limited his opportunities even.
I thought he did a good job early getting to the rim, just wasn't finishing, and they were playing good interior defense without fouling.
He was 8 for 9, but we've seen him hit double digits multiple times. And again, 21 shot attempts for him. Like that's, or 21 points, only where is that? Yeah, only 13 shot attempts and 4 essentially trips to the foul line. Like that's, no matter what he ends up with, like that in itself is a win. You limit him to that many, and then play really good defense on everybody else. Like that's how you beat Platteview.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. They just shots weren't falling for him. And Wahoo, with, you mentioned their length, they've got so many different contributors. They don't have one guy that's going to go out there and score 30 on you.
Completely agree.
They've got,
and I think they had 4 in double digits that night.
That's exactly how it works.
It was 4.
Like that,
it was everybody. They had 4 between 10 and 17.
Yeah. Marcus Glock, Benji Nelson, Owen Hancock, Cameron Kaczynski. He had a big game. Yeah. That's the difference maker for them. If he's hitting shots to go with those other guys, then they're going to be tough.
Tell you what, the spacing that he creates when he's shooting the ball well, because then you let guys that are good off the bounce like Benji just, hey, they can just get down. They had back-to-back runouts for dunks, and I was just like, oh, And I mean, the gym was packed. And let's give a shout out. Like Plattview's fan base, listen, I get it, right? Because you played Ashland Greenwood, they had the undefeated streak coming in, and um, Wahoo, who travels well and at the top of their craft. But man, those little
Yeah.
gym, like it's, I see why folks enjoy high school basketball. It's just a different kind of environment than you get in summer gyms.
Yep. And I mean, it's been building over like throughout this Connor Milliken tenure. They know how special this run is that they're on is, what kind of a player he is, and they're making the most of it, supporting it, and enjoying watching the show with him and his teammates. So, great week in terms of attendance for them. You mentioned that Ashland Greenwood game. That was a 60-52 win for Platteview to start the week. First loss of the season for Ashland Greenwood. Platteview was up 30-19 at halftime, and then Ashland Greenwood behind Brooks Kissinger. I forgot how many. He scored double digits in the third quarter to lead the comeback.
I think people were seeing Kip in the stands, and they're like, "What's going on?" You know, my buddy was saying he saw him at Parker Smokehouse. He's like, "Yeah, I was watching my son play before I'm out on the road," and I think he was doing Kansas. He had a couple of big games, so the Kissinger name reigns supreme.
Got to be tough between him and Reese at Midland. Had a big game when my brother and I went out there and watched them, and I think Kip was out there on the road calling a game somewhere.
I keep telling you, it's so cool to see you two, because I just saw you guys at Miller North together, right? That's where you seem to be thick as thieves, man. But it's good to have a little oil and water, or yin and yang, or however you guys are.
Yeah, he had rare Saturdays off where Ralston didn't have any games or anything like that, and then he didn't have his daughter on Saturday, so it's like, hey, let's go watch some games together.
Get out a little bit.
So that was 40 all heading into the fourth quarter, and then Platteview just won it from there, 20-12. And the most impressive part, Platteview shot 1 of 6 from 3.
Yeah,
so I won that game.
I was talking to Matt Milliken and Tyler Mosman, obviously parents of Trey and Connor, and both said the same thing over text. Did you ever think we would make 1 3, let alone only shoot 6, and still win that basketball game
against a really good team? And that's, Milliken had 32 and 13. He had 12 and 15 from the free throw line, and double from Ryman Ziebert, 11 points, 10 rebounds. That's big. You get
different body type too, right? Yeah. That can help you out.
Yeah, you get production out of him to go with what Milliken's and the perimeter guys are going to do. Then that changes that team. And I mean, the other 3 guys, their main guys, took combined, or even you add Cale Wickman off the bench, took 9 shots, 5 and 9 from Draper, Stewart, Milliken, and Wickman.
That's 3 of those. That's the law firm, baby.
Yeah. And
Stewart, Draper, and Milliken.
So it's just really interesting way that they won that game, but had the home crowd behind them and won it in the fourth quarter, and then went on the road to wrap up the week, 3-game week at UTAN, 55-46 win, and that was not an easy game for them. It was tied after 3 quarters, 39 all, and then Platteview defense just set in there and won it 16-7. Had Milliken 16 points on 20 shots, did not attempt a free throw. That's probably as good as well as anybody has defended Milliken all season long.
Completely agree. If you want to give yourself a chance, better keep him off the foul line. I was watching him against both Ashland Greenwood and Wahoo. He gets creases and he gets into you. It's very hard. I know how you are with straight up and being vertical. Yeah. If you don't, he gets into your body. It's almost like he can go to the foul line almost anytime he wants, if not scouted correctly.
Yeah, and he just goes so hard, and so that's credit to them. Nolan Timms had having a great senior year for UTAN, but Platteview got it done. So 12-1, still firmly number 2 behind Scud at 12-0, who had a 3-0 week, won by 15 at Lewis Central. Beat Croce by 34, and then a 4-0 week, including yesterday, actually, if you want to include the Monday game. They beat Lincoln Lutheran by 18 on the road, and then
they touch 70? What was that, 69-51 final?
Yep. Yeah, good call. Yeah, so 3-0 week, and then they start off this week with a 90-54 win against Sioux City West. The girls ran Sioux City West off the court too, and congrats to Peyton McCabe, who went over 1,000 points in that game.
Yeah, they got a chance to double dip.
Yeah,
obviously, because girls are up top. I think they're 13-1, and
only lost out of state,
and the boys are 12-0.
Yeah,
not bad to be 24-0 between the two of you with playing teams in Nebraska.
Yep. And then Crete's there at third at 12-1. They pulled out that one against York. We talked about being a big one.
It's pretty
50-43 held York to 33% shooting. So that defense, and then 54-37 at Norris, who Norris is pretty scrappy. They're really young, but they've got some real pieces that you're going to hear about them in a couple of years. It was 49-23 after third quarter, and then Norris made up a little ground in the fourth after the game was over already. But so impressive week for Crete. They continue to just kind of roll through the competition. And this week they've got Seward, Blair, and Elkhorn. So none of the top teams, but teams that are certainly capable if you don't bring your A game.
Yeah, and speaking of which, as we talk, York, Bennington, and Waverly. Bigger week for anybody in Class B than Waverly?
And that's the team that I was there at that Scottsbluff game. Scottsbluff pulled away from them. They weren't looking that great down the stretch. You're kind of wondering, is there enough here? And then right after that, followed up with the 3-0 week, climb from unranked to number 6 in Mike Sauter's coaches poll on NEB Preps. And they're now sitting at 8-4. They beat Elkhorn Mount Michael 49-45. They beat Bennington 59-57. That's a huge one.
That's a big one.
And then beat Seward 47-42 to, like I said, 3-0 week. The key with them is getting multiple players contributing offensively. We know Preston Harms can get hot, but he's not a guy that's going to be hitting every single night. We know that AJ Heffelfinger has played a lot of varsity ball for them and is capable. They need other guys producing offensively. And Sam Chernicow had a good week. They had a couple of good games from Kayla Valek. That Seward game, they won with 8 points from Harms. And that was tied at halftime. And they kind of opened that thing up in the third quarter, held Seward to 5 points. So that's really the key is, can they get enough offense from people not named Heffelfinger and Harms? And they did so this week.
Interesting thing when you kind of talk about like the rest of Class B, Scottsbluff, you look and you're thinking, no, they're capable. Probably not a place you want to travel, but still needs a couple of maybe signature wins. The team I'm curious about, what are your thoughts on Mount Michael? Played against their 8th grade team this year. Most of those guys will probably end up going to Mount Michael this weekend. My kiddo did. And I really like what they have kind of coming up in the pipeline. Is it too soon with that senior class, that great senior class that Spooner was a part of, Coach Spooner, Derek Spooner, versus long-term sustainability for Mount Michael? Because they seem to be a program, maybe uptick is too strong, but they seem like they're at a point where they can start to establish some consistency.
Yeah, they're sitting there at 9-3, 10th in the poll, despite that loss to Waverly, and it's been impressive. Kind of the leap that Harrison Long has made. He's
become much more efficient.
That's the thing. Like last season, he transferred there from Millard West after his freshman year. Last year, he started for them. Got to take all the shots he wanted. Had some big point totals, but ended up shooting percentage really low. It's hard being the number one option as a sophomore at the varsity level, particularly without a ton of really good players around you. So he's taken that experience, learned from it, and this year found a way to just monster game after monster game, averaging high 20s this year, a bunch of 30-point games, shooting well from the three. And then when threes aren't falling, he's getting to the free throw line too. It's not just taking the threes. He's finding other ways to score. And that's how you get the average he is.
Strong body too. Ways. Changed his frame a little bit. He's sturdy with the basketball. Yeah. He's taking pretty good care of the rock.
Then he's got Chop Polger and Kume Jop as kind of the complementary pieces there.
It's the second week in a row we've talked about Polger.
need a little bit more consistency out of those guys if they want to like move up the rankings, because there isn't a ton outside. It really is those three guys on a consistent basis providing the majority of their offense. If they can get that, if those guys can be a little bit more consistent to go with what Long's doing, they'll be an even tougher out moving forward.
When you're taking a look as we jump over to Class A, gap widening or the canyon tightening as we start with number 1 ranked Bellevue West?
Yes. Oh, it's interesting. Like I looking Bellevue West again, 14-0, 2-0 week. They beat Millward West 70-42.
Huge one coming up this week.
Yeah, 21-1 first quarter in that Millward West game, and then they beat Millward South on the road 65-44. And I mean, you look at it, they won easily in 2 games where they did not play particularly well. They didn't shoot the ball great. I don't think they had multiple guys like Jane Jackson had a really quiet week. Josiah Dostler had one good game, one kind of quiet game. So it's, again, like they didn't shoot nearly as well as they're capable of this week, and still not even stressed. Like their defense is so good. It's so tough for teams to score against them. You can get by and win even when you're not having a good offensive game because they're so tough to score on. So they look planted firmly at the top. And then we'll see this week how true that is, because like you mentioned, the 1 versus 2, Bellevue West versus Gretna, biggest game in Class A of the season thus far.
Yeah, and as Gretna coming off, I think controlling that game from start to finish. The first quarter was okay against Omaha West Side, but really extending to the 10-point lead in the second quarter and kept it status quo in the second half.
It was 18-12 first quarter. Gretna got off to a good start. Westside rallied, opened the second quarter on a 9-2 run, I believe, tied it up, or 93 run, tied it up at 21, and then didn't score again. They Gretna 9 straight to end the first half, and then hit a 3 early in the third quarter to stretch that thing to double digits, and then kept it there. No. And really, it was their defense. It's Bill Hurd, mastermind over there on that bench, coordinating things.
You saw it multiple times, and I used the word multiple twice. Multiple defenses.
Yeah.
About every 3 times down the court, they would get in something different, and it was just interesting to watch kind of the dribble handoff game and the gap, kind of whether you're 1 gap or 2 gap, could get downhill for Westside. It's just not an offense that seems to suit their skill sets.
And season low, 43 points for Westside.
How about all the blocks at the rim?
Well, yeah, and Tate Oddbody, 17 points, 7-11, but he had 14 in the first half. Only took 3 shots second half. They did a really good job, again, physical with them taking out of the game, and nobody else could step up.
Hey, how good was Smolenski guarding Oddbody?
That's what he's out there for. The starter.
And I said this to Sauter on Friday. I watched him and I just
player.
Right. And I like baseball guys, obviously. So I got there super early. I watched, 2.5 quarters of the girls' game. I just wanted to watch him move and kind of what makes him go. And number one, he's a lot twitchier than I thought. He's kind of bouncy. Threw a couple of down in warm-ups. And you know what? He was physical. He would touch, clutch, grab. He talked a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I'd play with that guy.
And then there are a couple of times where it just caught the defense sleeping with a cut to the rim, with crashing the offensive glass from the backside.
Wash, rinse, repeat, right? Get into the lane. 2 guys would dive, help defense, leave, layup.
Yep.
It was a lot of that. And I know Westside worked the heck out of that in practice, just did not execute in game time.
And you talk about the switching defenses and Westside's offense there. How many possessions were there where just aimless pass, they weren't even really getting in and dribble weave. It was pass around. Somebody was looking for somebody else to make a play. Everybody's just giving the ball up. They didn't look like they were getting in any kind of action until late in the shot clock, and they realized, we got to do something now.
If that backcourt isn't getting downhill, that offense can look stagnant.
Yeah, and that's really what it was. CJ Mitchell did not have a good game. Caleb had 5 assists, was getting in the paint, making some plays, but
didn't shoot enough.
CJ's not scoring. That's like he had like 2 points or whatever.
It doesn't shoot enough.
2 of 5 from the free throw line. Didn't make a shot from the field. Hardly shot it from the field outside of when he was getting fouled. So, like, that's like you're not going to win with getting a combined like 6 points or whatever it was from that starting backcourt.
What do you make what happened with kind of neutralizing Kevin Brown?
Yeah, and again,
Was it lack of touches, or because most of his touches were on the perimeter?
And that's what it was. So again, we talk about Bill Hurd's defense, their strategy. Caleb's a really good player, or Kevin's a really good player. Just the three ball isn't falling for this year. They were having Jeff Rozelle help off, playing the lane. So you've got 6'6" long arm shot.
Hey, how different are they with him in the post?
At the rim on every single drive. And that's, yeah, they got by last week, the previous week with Rozelle out of the lineup, out of town, got back, and he hit double 13 and 11 in that game. Made a big difference. And again, defensively, he was always at the rim. That's part of what made it so tough for Westside to get there and to finish is they always had a body there because they were playing off of not just Kevin, they were playing off of multiple guys because guys were hitting shots.
I knew that, when I knew the game was over, you talked about, so it was 44-33. Westside had gotten 3 consecutive stops. Gretna is kind of grinding down. Pecorski kind of throws one up. They get an offensive rebound, put back, missed, blocked at the rim, loose ball scramble. Who hit the dagger 3? Alex Wilcoxon. And I'm like,
Game over.
Remember that? And I'm like, that was your opportunity to get the ball back and cut it to single digits. Instead, it's 47-33, and this is going to be a grind. That was a huge shot that Wilcoxon hit.
And that's the thing, like between Pecorski and Wilcoxon had 16 apiece. I mentioned double-double for
how many tough shots did Landon hit?
And that's the thing. Pecorski and Wilcoxon both early on to build that lead early, and then finish. They weren't getting open looks. They were going through defense and finishing hard at the rim. We talked about like we weren't sure if they had that element to their game outside of maybe Alec Wilkins, who had some really good takes in the game. All 3 of those guys, they were not afraid in this game. They went hard to the rim, converted some tough buckets. Later on, second half, I think the West Side, your defense settled in a little bit, made life more difficult for
do you think they made do you think they made a concerted effort to go at CJ?
I think so. Yeah,
it looked like it.
Yeah. I don't think they were worried about that matchup.
It was they would get the high ball screen, and then they would get the switch, and then it was like it was getting downhill, and I felt like, I was like, gosh, can you get a foot in the paint? But then how about how they ISO'd Pecorski and Caleb to end the half, where it was like 14 seconds, and he made a tough shot at the basket, and that was a nice.
Defended that well.
It was a nice move he made. Yeah. I was just like, sometimes you just got to tip your cap, right? Like they were on their game.
I mean, that was this game. It was Gretna's juniors stepped up and played better than Westside juniors. I mean, Kevin Stubblefield had 12 points on 10 shots.
He's amazing.
Didn't get
sometimes
going until the second half, really. So it's just again, those 3 43 points combined between Wilkins, Wilcoxon, and Pecorski, and what was it, like 18? I think it was 18 for the West Side's 3 juniors.
Doesn't it? Landon looks like a grown-up, doesn't he?
He's physical, not afraid again in there, and again can hit some tough shots, and did a few of those early on to help them build that lead. So
go to number 3, Creighton Prep, as we talk 2 and 4, Gretna Westside. Prep is interesting, right? Because you look at them and you're like, okay, who am I going to take away? And you're doing the scouting report, and nothing really jumps out at you. You want to limit Nubo putting it on the deck. You want to make sure Rishel isn't getting like super clean looks at threes. And somehow they just, and it's obvious it's Coach Lukey, but they just keeping on, and they do it in a couple of different ways.
And easy week, relatively, considering the competition level. They played Papillion the Vista, won that 76-37, and then played Columbus, won that 64-31, both at home. So as far as schedules go, this is one of the easier weeks for them. They took care of business. Trinell Parker in that first game, 18 points, 8 boards, 4 blocks.
He's coming, isn't he?
Emergence.
Yeah, he's coming.
He's becoming a difference maker to supplement what they're getting from Dylan Clausen, who's been their most consistent player. And then the second game, Clausen again, 15 points, 9 boards, 3 blocks. Rishel had 15, and then Carson Jones 3 of 5 from 3 had 11 points too. So really quiet week for Newville, but they had other guys step up. They didn't necessarily need a big game from him, and now they'll have the competition ramps up a little bit. They've got Millard North, as we record this on Tuesday, and then Central on Friday, who just came off a big win last week, knocking off Lincoln High. So,
well, you talk about mirror images of what has to happen for both teams to have success, and I know we're not there yet with Central and Lincoln High. How odd is that? The team that gets the more consistent backcourt play is probably going to be the team that gets the advantage in that one with how they like to play in the front court, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. So that's prep. They've got, again, tougher week this week. We'll learn a little bit more about them. They got the rematch from the Metro semifinal, and it's on Millard North's home court, so they're gonna have to go on the road and try to show that wasn't a fluke the last time they played, that they're here to that they deserve that number 3 ranking. We talked about Westside at 4, only a 1 game this week. Playing the Vistas, they're not going to learn a bunch about Warriors this week. And 5, Millard North. Interesting. So they've got the prep game on Tuesday, and then they've got the out of town tournament deal that they're playing in.
I thought they had the second best one of the week. I thought Gretna's was the best one of the week over Westside because they sent kind of a message in terms of their physicality. But the Millard North Lincoln East game, you hold Lincoln East to just 6 points in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
To give yourself a chance to send that game to overtime. And 2 of your guys with Mick and Templemeyer, like, how about Mick's increased minutes in the role that he's evolved into?
Yeah, so that's 2 in a week for Millard North, coming off of that loss to Westside, bounce back in a big way, beat Central 58-52, so a bit of a grinder in that one. 20-5 second quarter, and they held on from there. And then despite shooting 7 of 28 from 3. And then 63-62 overtime against Lincoln East in a game where East got 31 points from Carter Mick. And you mentioned they were down going in the fourth quarter. Millard North was 11-6 to tie that thing up, send it to overtime, back and forth. And Millard North down 1, get the ball to Neil Mosser. Wasn't having a great game, obviously. We know more known for his 3-point shooting, his passing. Turns the corner, gets downhill, throws up a floater off the glass to give them the lead, and then they get a stop to win the game there on the other end. Heck of a play from him in that situation to go to, like, you know what, I'm going hard to the rim. I'm putting my head down. I don't care. I'm going to go get this bucket, and he did it.
How about Lincoln East scoring more points in overtime than they did in the fourth quarter? Now, still, you're in the single digits, but if you're Coach Campbell and you're looking at that one, your takeaways are you competed on the road, but what happened after the first quarter? Was the first quarter 2020 or it was 2019? I think it was 20. I think it was 2019 Millard North, and then it was downhill from there.
So, and nobody had a great offensive week for them. Derek Rollins had 16, 12 points, 6 blocks. It didn't shoot well in the first game. Second game had 15.
You know what teams are starting to do with him? They get into him.
Yeah.
They touch him and they kind of feel for him.
Work, yeah.
So I think coming out of the, like, learning to pass it out of the double and feeling where the pressure comes from will be the next step in his evolution.
Yeah. And big key there, they got 13 from Skyland Williams, who hit 3 threes, went 3 or 4 from
deep. Did you give that a double take?
Well, he played well early in the holiday tournament. Had a good game or two. I've seen him play well. It's just like games he's not a factor.
I thought he was really going to be a problem in the summer.
Yeah.
But there's there's a big difference between summer and playing in season. But he showed some versatility. I thought his shot selection against Westside, which was the last time I saw him live, he kind of suffered a little bit. But man, is he a capable defender too?
So
when he wants to.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, where they like him most, with his length out on the perimeter. That's kind of where his primary contributions come from. And then if he's hitting shots, that makes a big difference for them. The key to the game, Lincoln East, 24 turnovers.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they got to overtime with that many giveaways was remarkable. And again, it was firmly on the back of Carter Mick, 31.
I mean, because those are empty trips.
Yeah. You don't even get a shot up, no chance at offensive rebound, no chance at drawing fouls. And a lot of them, if they're live ball turnovers, going back the other way, because we know how good Miller North can be in transition with Elijah Gaith, where that's where he excels, open court, as opposed to the half court where he's got a chance to get to the rim there. So 24 turnovers, just not going to overcome that. But Mick, 31 points, 11 of 15 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3. Just unreal performance, and they just didn't quite get enough from other guys, and then the turnovers was a big part of that. But 31 out of your team, 62 points. That's an impressive performance from Mick, who had 21 in their win earlier in the week when they beat Kearney. That was a good win for them. They handled Kearney. Just
his evolution.
Yeah,
he dual sport guy. We know he's fantastic in baseball and didn't play heavy minutes last year, and he's logging huge minutes this year. Kind of been fun to watch.
Yeah. So we'll go rapid fire here through the rest. Some big results. Lincoln High, again, off that great start, 0-2 week, lost by 15 at Lincoln Northeast, and then lost by 7 at Omaha Central.
And they have a toughie on Thursday.
Yeah, against Lincoln Southeast, who
still can't figure them out. But I'm with you, kind of what your summation was early in the season before the season started. It was, we'll see how consistent they can be and who they run their offense through.
Lincoln Southwest at number 8, 7-4. Overtime, 67-66 win at Lincoln North Star.
Ryland Smith.
Right. So Brennan in overtime, whatever. Brennan Clemens hits a tough fadeaway. Dude had 24 and 20 in that game.
Hey, when healthy, he's tough, isn't he?
He's having a really good season for them. And then so they get the ball inbounds, and Ryland Smith pushes it up, pulls it up, banks in a 3 at the buzzer. Still haven't got confirmation whether or not he called the bank, but it went in, so he gets credit for it.
He was at least on the wing.
How about my guy, Mr. Official, wandering across the middle of the court?
I get it.
I don't know. I don't know what happened there. He just got
got caught up in the moment.
Yeah. Just glad that he was really close to throwing a screen.
Yeah, didn't get anybody hurt or he didn't get hit.
Yeah. But so heck of a game for them. Chuck Love, 19 points, 6 of 10, and that again,
he's back on it now because
exactly
he's taken some time.
He got off to a great start. Had a couple of rough games when they hit that slide a little bit. For him to 19 efficient points, hitting threes. They got 16 from Ryland Smith, hit 10 threes as a team, and Lincoln North Star only hit 4. So that overcome the Lincoln North Star's paint advantage there. So a big win for them. And they got Papio South on Tuesday, Pius on Thursday, and Fremont on Friday. Elkhorn South at 9.
How about this? Entering the top 10. They're a headache to play against.
And so they beat Benson 69-47, got 40 points combined between Alec Noonan and Evan Warner, who are their leading scorers this year. That have kind of then they followed that up at Lincoln or against Lincoln Northeast on Saturday. I was there at that game, 62-46, and Noonan had finished with 11 points on 14 shots. I think it was. Had a really rough day. Nothing was going in for him. Warner didn't score in the first half, and they still find a way to go into halftime with a lead. And then Warner came alive, 15 points in the second half to lead the team. They pulled that thing away, get it up above 20 before Northeast kind of got a few buckets back late in the fourth quarter. But great game from Jackson Moore Swan, 5 of 5 from the field.
He's a good athlete.
8 assists, no turnovers.
He's a really good athlete.
And he doesn't shoot a lot, so him scoring 13 points and hitting those were some big threes that he hit to kind of help them pull that away, especially again with other guys struggling. Caden Stone was steady throughout, 14 points. And the difference there was Northeast, who comes in at number 10 after a 2-1 week. They picked up 2 good wins before losing to Elkhorn South. 18 turnovers, and that was the difference in the game. Elkhorn South only had 9. He had twice as many turnovers. He got more shots up at the basket. So even though Elkhorn South didn't have a great offensive game, they just had more cracks at it. And they really turned up their defense in the third quarter, started doubling some, trapping some handoffs and pick and rolls, and creating breakouts the other way. But Northeast, they beat Papio South by 20 to start the week, and then mentioned beat Lincoln High by 15. And Papio South, they got to find a way to generate.
Yeah, they're kind
the
of hit the skids a little bit as they've fallen out of the top 10.
Yeah. So that's kind of a look at the top 10 there. Again, great win for Elkhorn South to kind of, they had 8-3 record. I think the only other win against a winning team was against Omaha North. So another good win to show like, hey, yeah, we are getting better. And they're still without Gavin Hornbacher, who hopes to get back in the lineup soon with a broken arm. So that's kind of look at A. We mentioned kind of the losses this week. Ashland Greenwood suffered that first loss against at Platteview. Ogallala 14-0 up to number 1 in C1. Wahoo's there at 3. Concordia's at 4 because Pierce suffered their first loss as well. They're now 11-1. And then Central City is there at 6 at 12-1. You got to see.
I went to watch them play Centennial, and I mean that's a good basketball team. And I always get a chance to. I always like getting a chance to go out and watch, and they shoot it well enough, and they share the ball. And I'm telling you, I know I'm biased because it's my guy, but I think Aiden Zickman is one of the best kept secrets in the state.
Having a great season, went over 1,000 points.
He's so versatile,
scoring a lot of points for them. So yeah, Central City, they're going to be in the mix as well, firmly in C1. C2, Hardin Cedar Catholic up there at number 2 at 10-2. Freeman suffered their first loss to Tri-County in the Mudecas tournament. They're down at 3 at 13-1. Donovan Trumbull 15-0. Jack Poppy, freshman, named to know in the next 4 years. He's having a great season for them.
So Donovan Trumbull, I was missing.
Yeah,
because I think I said 6, and the other one because I didn't even know they co-opt. When did Hayes Central co-op?
They've been there for a few years.
Did I just miss that?
Yeah, because I remember seeing them play volleyball a couple years back, but yeah, they're 15-0, a top D1, and Layton is also 12-0 in D1. No undefeateds in D2. Quick shout outs before we go, man. It's a huge week of monster performances. Like I picked 5 here. Like go look at my Twitter account because they're Hayden Frank. So Malcolm, we shout out him before.
They got a big game this week too, by the way.
My brother, so Coach Trent Ralston texted me at halftime. I was like, Hayden's first half was good enough to make your list. Finished with 41 points on 12 of 22 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3, 12 of 14 from the free throw line. In an 8-point win against Ralston. He had 41 of their 55 points.
Is that a lot?
Yeah, that's a lot. Kale Gustafson at Osceola. Dude had
second time we've talked about it.
60 rebounds and 73 points in 3 games for Osceola this week.
Do we need to make a trip?
73 points and 60 rebounds in 3 games. He had multiple 20-20 games. 25 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists against Nebraska Christian. 27 points, 20 rebounds, 4 assists against Friend. 21 points, 24 rebounds, 12 offensive rebounds against Giltner. Just a ridiculous week. Elkhorn Valley senior Brendan Olendick, triple-double at 19 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists against Niobrara Verdigre. Also had 20 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists against Stanton, and 15 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists against Bloomfield. 28 assists in 3 games at the high school level is very difficult to do. And he's also scoring and rebounding in addition. Trey Richard from Nebraska Lutheran, senior, had 38 points, 8 of 17 from 3, 8 of 9 from the free throw line in 1 game. Shelby Rising City.
From behind the arc?
4 of 10 against High Plains, and 24 points, 9 of 17 shooting, 9 boards against East Butler. That's a lot of points. 92 points in 3 games. That'll get it done for them. Finally, River Johnson tied the North Platte school record, 9 3-pointers, had 33 points, shot 12 of 17 from the field, including 9 of 14 from 3, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And Corian Gallatin, freshman at Fremont, 33 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 7 of 12 from 3, 4 of 4 from the rebound, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 6 assists against Benson.
Just a freshman going for almost 17 a night. That'll do it.
Yeah. Certainly shows what he's capable of. I mean, it's tough being the number 1 option on a Class A team without a ton of talent around you, but he's certainly shown what he's capable of talent-wise.
Could eventually get some help from Cassio Jensen with a little more consistency, too. That's another week. If you're looking for something lower than Class C, and you're looking at C2, you mentioned Malcolm. They got Freeman. And I think it's tonight. It's either tonight or tomorrow.
Yep.
which should be a good one. But all of that, you're not getting this anyplace else with my man Jacob Padilla. I'm just me, DB. We're back next week with Nebraska Preps postgame.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.